come back to the speakers, to the individual speakers. And the next speaker is, just a moment. I think I lost some content. Just give me a minute, please.
I have the program with me.
Okay.
Yeah, so the next speaker is Dr. Sonia Betschart. I hope I've done that well, from We Robotics and Flying Labs. Do you have her profile with you, Doc?
No, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I've just lost. I don't know whether you have it.
Okay, so I have a brief profile. It's not as elaborate as the one you have, but Dr. Sonia Betschart is the co-founder and co-CEO of We Robotics, a US Swiss-based social impact organization that elevates and strengthens expertise in drone, data, and AI in Africa, Latin America, Asia, and the Pacific with the Flying Labs network. Together with our colleagues, and by shifting power with local experts and organizations, We Robotics is redefining what it means to be an expert, offering a lived, applicable, and scalable example that other organizations can adopt. She's a passionate change agent, facilitator, and social entrepreneur with a long-standing career both in nonprofit and for-profit sectors, including startups, SMEs, and multinationals. She's an Ashoka Fellow and has been voted one of Switzerland's 100 digital shapers for 3 years. That is from 2018 to 2019, and the last time was in 2021. So Sonia, please welcome, feel welcome. We look forward to your presentation. Dr. Sonia.
Thank you so much, Samuel, and thank you, Dr. Njenge, for inviting me. And I will just share my screen. Just give me 1 second.
Great, you can see it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm not sure, Dr. Njenge, if I'm going to be the one who will caution on AI, because I'm also a technology enthusiast. But I wanted to talk today about our work with the Flying Labs Network, and just to give a different angle and talk a bit less about technology and a bit more about the value that technology can create, and to say who should be the ones who actually get to create the value and how can it be created. So thank you very much for inviting me. Our key initiative at We Robotics is the Flying Labs Network. And as Samuel has so nicely introduced already, what we do is we want to shift power with local experts and organizations to redefine what it means to be an expert. And for this, we are co-creating an inclusive and self-sustaining network, the Flying Labs Network. Now, before I go a bit more into the part of the discussion, I just want to introduce what Flying Labs are. Flying Labs are independent knowledge hubs that convene local expertise and strengthen capacity. In our case, it's for professional drone, data, robotics, and AI services. And all work that Flying Labs do is directly related to SDGs. And the network is present in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and in some other countries. The structure behind the network is that it builds on existing local organizations who already have a track record with drones, drone data, robotics, and AI, and who want to join the network through an affiliation model. And then Flying Labs in their countries are self-funded. They decide to join the network on their own initiative. And they, for their sustainability, they offer services, mostly to local governments, local NGOs, and private organizations, but also in many cases to international organizations or international partners. For me, the Flying Labs network, the biggest value of the network is really about sharing and collaborating. So each Flying Lab, while being part of the network, get access to a lot of things. Each Flying Lab also shares back their experiences and learnings so that everyone in the network actually can learn from each other, and that each actively contributes to the network's purpose and also to growing it, both in expertise, but also in quality. So this is really all about sharing and collaborating. The network is today present in 35 countries. So there's 35 Flying Labs, of which the most important continent is Africa. There's 17, so almost half of the network actually has hubs, Flying Labs in Africa. And it keeps on growing organically. Like I said, any existing organization that already has a track record can join the network through a defined process. And there's about, depending on years, there's about 6 to 8 new Flying Labs that join the network each year. And the next one to join that is missing on this map next month is going to be Ethiopia. So one more lab in Africa. Now, as this today is about women in the AI, I also just wanted to speak about the role of women within the Flying Labs network and also within robotics. So in our industry, which is mainly the drone industry, we actually have a very sad record when it comes to women, because only 30% of the workforce in this industry are women. And when you go look at this number, there has been a study done on that 3 years ago. And when you look at that, you know, most of the roles are actually non-technical roles. Most roles are in administration or finance or communications. And very few roles are actually either technical roles or leadership roles. So if you would break that down to technical roles, we possibly would come to something like 5%, which is a really, really sad truth. And for us, this is also something that is very important and that we want to kind of tackle as a side element to our work. So we're very proud to say that the Flying Labs network today has 27% of women. So quite the difference from the industry standard. And even more so, as out of these 27, a majority of the women of the Flying Labs network either lead on Flying Labs or are in a technical role. We at Robotics, and I put the latest number because we're making some changes to our organizations. We are hiring some new staff in July and we're closing down a department. And then we, as a small organization, we're going to have 80% of women. And the fact I'm most proud about is that 100% of all the technical roles within Robotics will be held by women. So this is just kind of a side note I wanted to make, and a fact that makes me very happy, both when it comes to Flying Labs and the women who have the leading and technical roles, and also to our own organization. So I wanted just to show an example of what Flying Labs do when it comes to drones and data and AI, because it's not for someone who doesn't kind of see the link behind. I thought I'd just bring one of the very recent examples that actually is still being worked on. It's in South Africa, where South Africa Flying Labs is currently working on a project with local city government to understand in a slum area that you can see here, what are different risks that actually are in this area. And the first element that actually is not known is how many people really live in this area. So based on drone data that South Africa Flying Labs acquired of this area, the team then built their own machine learning algorithms, and just to start out and already count how many structures there actually are. So that gives a first indication to just understand how many structures are we actually talking about, and how many people do we actually talk about when we talk about risks. So based on that, the Flying Labs now is doing a flood risk analysis of the whole area to understand what are the flood risks. And I like this image particularly because it shows, when you look at the part with the buildings there that are slightly bigger, This area is the disaster, how shall I best say that, is the area where inhabitants of the slum can go to when there's disasters. So when you look at, just if I come back one slide or two slides, if you look at the area, and then you look at how many houses actually are available in case of disaster, we show there's definitely a very big mismatch. And this is the kind of data that Flying Labs really closely work on with, for example, city governments to understand relationships. And I'm a big believer in geospatial data and drone data because it's just so visual that for someone who has zero technical expertise, it's very easy to, if I go back to understand this picture, to kind of understand this picture and then giving numbers to that and saying, this is how many structures there are. And then looking at this picture and saying, possibly what the city has built in terms of shelters is never going to be big enough. So the flood risk analysis will allow to understand which areas are prone to floods. At the same time of the whole area, there's a fire risk analysis that's being worked on also with machine learning algorithms to understand which areas have the highest risk of fire. And then to work together with the city government to address these issues based on the data that has been acquired by drones, by the local team, and then based on data outcomes and insights that have been created with machine learning algorithms. And AI is such an important part of this work or machine learning because the sheer amount of data will make it impossible to do analysis if there's not an ML component to that. And in many ways, this is a disaster risk reduction exercise, but many of these exercises are also done when actually there is a disaster. So reason more to be counting on machine learning as a support for data analysis, because results need to be quick. And if one would have to analyze by hand the data that has been collected, the vast amount of data that has been collected, it would not be possible. So looking at all of the Flying Labs works, meaning hundreds of projects over 35 countries, we did an analysis to understand where actually is time invested. And depending on projects, this might slightly change, but it's not going to change dramatically. So what we have learned over the last 5 years is that only about 10% of time is actually invested in drones, in technology. 45% of the time of Flying Labs and projects and working with the stakeholders is invested in data. And I think this is going to come to no surprise to anyone here in this panel, but depending on who looks at these numbers, people are actually really surprised. And that brings me also to kind of the topic of what I want to talk about. It's the fact that, while we at the Flying Labs Network and we robotics are very, very excited about technology and about drones, in the end, it's never about the drones and it's never about the technology, but it's about what insights can be created with the data. And if you look at that pie chart, the missing 45% of time is actually invested into community and stakeholder engagement. May it be before a drone is flown, may it be right after, once we have first results, may it be in discussions then with the stakeholders or the communities directly once the results are there. So there's actually a vast amount that is invested in the who and not at all in the what, in the technology. Bringing me to my last slide, where I wanted to talk a bit more about then where actually lies the value. So while we all agree that the drones are kind of the base to be able to collect the data, but in the end, it's really not the drones that actually will be the most valuable part. The most valuable part is, first of all, people and humans and their expertise. And who is actually holding the leading role? May it be for the drones and their applications, may it be for the data processing, the analysis, the creation of the machine learning algorithms, may it be for the stakeholder engagement process that we've just seen before is actually such an important part of the work, almost half of the time going into that. And then most of all, what we've learned over time, it's what we call turning data into action. It's really that mix between the data itself, the insights that can be produced, and the stakeholder engagement to make certain that data is only acquired when we actually know it can create value, and more than value, that it can create action. Because if we don't invest the time in the very beginning to understand, will this data be actionable, and is someone actually really interested in taking action on this, then it's better not to invest any time in it. And sadly, in our kind of work, when it comes to drones and drone data, this is mostly not the case. A lot of people will get very excited about technology. They are about the drones themselves. They're fun tools. They will fly the drones. But then again, in the end, there's no value to be had. So it's really important to talk about that. As I'm part of an international organization, I also want to talk about the value that we can provide. I think international organizations have value to provide. It's not in the lead, it's in the supporting role, in supporting the local experts with whatever they possibly might need. Access to technologies, access to opportunities, access to certain learning resources. And then we really see one of our most important roles also, or values, in just connecting between existing technology, connecting between experts who might be a really good add-on to certain solutions, but then really also only if this is needed. And if not, then we are not needed, and that's perfect also. And another big value definitely lies, and that's with our work very clear, on the collaboration and sharing. So on how the work is done. First and foremost, by learning from others, and this is something that happens in the networks. We're learning from others' successes, but mostly also learning from others' failures. A lot of these projects are pilot projects, are innovative projects, so failure is always a part of it, because we want to learn, we want to try out new things. So being able to share that openly with others has a lot of value, because then others, they still might make mistakes and have their failures, but it might not be the same. If you cannot repeat the same mistakes by just sharing what went well and what didn't go well, it helps others to go faster. It's also about collaboration in projects, training and conferences, by adding on different expertises. As I said before, I think a lot about the collaboration and sharing part is about taking stakeholders along the journey, the ones who in the end will possibly or want to create action out of what is created. So being able to taking them along the journey from the very beginning, discussing what the area is about, discussing the issues, having them take part in the data acquisition, having them taking part in the data analysis. We've seen yields a lot of value also for the ones included, who a lot of time don't have technical profiles, but who can learn along the journey how these kind of technologies can create value or additional value for them. And then one of the important values of collaboration and sharing is also by just being able to replicate the use case. The use case we just saw in South Africa, we already know it can be replicated in hundreds of cities where flying labs are active. So documenting that, documenting again the successes and the failures, and how that journey has been for the stakeholders is going to be important for many other flying labs than to just take that use case and replicate it in their countries. And then another value definitely lies in just the pure economic value of creating local markets, economies, and jobs. And something that was said before by Samuel in the discussion, I think what we've learned, one of an important value is also by this kind of work and by working together with communities is just also the motivation and inspiration for youth that can be created through a project. When they see drones, when they get access to see what drones and drone data can do, when they can understand what happens if you add a machine learning algorithm to that, that actually will give them an inspiration or motivation to follow a career in STEM. Thank you very much for inviting me. And thank you also to all the other amazing ladies who have spoken before me. It has been highly interesting.
Great, Sonja. That was nice. That was very coherent. In fact, it recalls to my mind when you talked about the flying labs. I remember that in one of the applications we had made in response to a call sometime last year, we got to know about the flying labs in Tanzania. And we were interested if they could enable us to get images from the drones that then could be applied on machine learning algorithms. You see, those are very powerful potential uses or applications of such a lab that is so invasive right inside the continent of Africa. Thank you so much for your offer. That was nice. So I still ask people. For the next 10 minutes, I want to invite the next speaker. And that is a lady, Mariam Nyang, is a PhD student from the University of Sheikh Anta Diop of Dakar, that is UCAD. She is a beneficiary within the AI4D Africa PhD scholarship. And she's one of the two speakers that we picked out of the project for today at PhD level, due to how interesting her content or her studies are. And allow me then to ask her to come over straight and speak about what her area of telecommunication combined with machine learning is then converting towards the SDGs in Africa. Mariam, please welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Genje, for this presentation. Can you see my, I can share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you again, and I'm glad to be here, and allow me to thank CTS and all organizations who support our project and give us the opportunity to participate in this seminar. My name is Mariam Nya. I'm a PhD student at the University of Dakar. I'm going to present my working progress titled Machine Learning plus Fingerprint Wi-Fi Indoor Positioning System and best approach to reduce the time to market. With the development of mobile network, location-based service is emergency. The explosion of the location-based service makes the location more and more difficult and expensive. We have two types of localization, the indoor localization and the outdoor localization. The most technical use in outdoor localization is the global positioning system, but the global positioning system doesn't accept inside the closed place because signal get affected by building, which lead to decrease the accuracy. And GPS need to have a lot of satellite to be work perfectly, and we don't have a line of sight between transmitter and receiver, which is the result from multipath and obstacle. And also GPS need a lot of power. This is why alternative location are being studied in this indoor positioning system is an important application to enhance navigation and tracking people asset in like building, hospital, campuses, and museum. But indoor positioning system is the hard to develop and to deploy because we have many hardware and software, and not data. Data is not significantly persistent, and we have a lot of technical indoor positioning system, but many of them don't give a good accuracy and affected by multipath and signal blockage. In our objective is to overcome some of challenge named linearity and multipath and obstacle, and reduce the time to market with the least possible development distributed over the whole of the hardware. For that, we propose an indoor localization using Wi-Fi and fingerprint and machine learning, because a fingerprint is easy to duplicate and it gives a good accuracy, and we need to have a low hardware requirement, and fingerprint allow to eliminate the embedded development on a radio emitter and limiting the radio network knowledge and programming, and taking account all the indicators of the data like signal quality, the RSI, angle of arrival, mobile user, and user fatigue. But to push this fingerprint database, we need to have the database. It takes a long time, a lot of time. But for that, we propose machine learning, because machine learning is the right approach to learn from observation without coding complex and secure network protocols like send signal or beacon to receive and decrypt information and data and to aggregate the data. Machine learning just help to process with a learning and testing algorithm for all indicators. In our methodology, we use some tools like Wi-Fi access point, mobile phone, PC server, cable, and support. And here we have the area of our location. The fingerprint map is built where it contains the data covering the whole area to be used by the machine learning to predict the position. Each data point has the RSI from 4 fixed access point and its position. A point was taken every 0.2 meter from the x-axis and every 0.25 from the y-axis, starting from the origin, unless there were obstacles, walls, or furniture that permit taking this point. This approach of regular fingerprint map result in having 700 points in various ratios. For example, here we have 20 fixed for percentage for training and 75 percentage for testing, as shown in this figure. In fingerprint map, we need to have we have two phases. So online phase is the offline phase. In the online phase, we divided in different parts. Firstly, the RSI reading were taken using an Android app called Wi-Fi fingerprint and slid on mobile. This RSI value can be affected by random fluctuation due to the fading and multi-part phenomena. However, we add the minimum mean square error, an approach of data-centric AI to mitigate the effect of the environment by reducing the noise in the data. This new fingerprint map was saved in an Excel sheet file to be used by the algorithm and sent to Python. Secondly, in the online phase, on Wi-Fi modeling, ESP can read the unknown location from the access point and send this value to the Firebase and access Python and use Python to access to the Excel sheet file. In machine learning, we divide our data into training and testing. The training data is used to train the machine learning model to predict the location, and the testing is used to evaluate the performance generated by the machine learning model. After that, we estimate the positioning of the user. We perform some result in different test scenarios. We use the machine learning algorithm, and we compare our result to others' previous works, and it gives a good accuracy compared to others. And we also compare our proposal to others' system using Wi-Fi fingerprint and Wi-Fi fingerprint. For that, we have indoor positioning based on mobile-centric Wi-Fi with statical fingerprint. We need to have 6 months to build this system, and 12 kilobyte line of code and data. And compared to indoor positioning based on infrastructure-centric Wi-Fi and secure with dynamic fingerprint, we need to have 12 months and 30 kilobyte line of code and data. In our proposal, in machine learning using Wi-Fi and fingerprint indoor positioning system, we need we have 1 month to build this fingerprint and 2 kilobyte line of code and data. For that, we can conclude that our proposal improves the accuracy caused by the change of the environment and reduce the time to coding. No need knowledge because the machine learning is programmed on a receiver. Example, program plus data aggregation, unlike other techniques which require cooperative protocols. We can reduce the number of the line of the code. We can also reduce the time to market with at least possible development speed over the entire hardware architecture. After that, in the next step, we are developing an application mobile based on Wi-Fi plus LoRa for long transmission, and use the user posture and the angle of arrival of the user. And after that, we built our database and machine learning. And we use also machine learning And some deep learning algorithms like CNN, recurrent neural network, and LSTM to build our positioning system. In our working progress, we have also an application fingerprint, Wi-Fi LoRa, and multiple channel signals, and also a pragmatic fingerprint mobile application based on inertial navigation and taking account realistic posture of the user with a mobile phone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mariam. In a very novel attempt to be able to trace individuals indoors. We know we can usually trace individuals using the mobile devices outdoors, however, the accuracy goes down tremendously when people are then indoors. This would still be a very nice method. Then would allow me now to go to our last speaker, and that is just a moment. That is Susan Okeo, and I'll just say something brief about Susan. Susan is a PhD candidate at the University of Nairobi, which is within our Project 2, AI for the Africa. And her topic is on leveraging geospatial technologies for small order farmer credit scoring. We all know how difficult this area is. And she's attempting to use this kind of credit scoring because it would be possible to give insurance to our smallholder farmers. It would also be possible then to predict their yields and appropriately intervene. Welcome, Susan, for the next 8 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Jenge, and I would kindly request Marianne to stop sharing her screen so that I can share mine.
Okay. Marianne, just bring down your own presentation. Mariam or Fiona, I don't know whether she's near her machine. Fiona, is it possible to bring it down from your end to someone?
I think Susan can just share.
Good.
You want to?
Yes, no, it's been brought down, I think. Susan, go ahead.
I hope my screen is visible. All right. Thank you, Dr. Jenge, for the great introduction. I must begin by saying this. 10, 20, 30 years ago, I could never have imagined myself talking in such a great forum about the thing I love the most, food. And that is why I am so passionate about any topic touching on food security. Well, I am Susan Okeo from the University of Nairobi in Kenya. And my topic of research is leveraging geospatial technology for smallholder farmer credit scoring. My screen can't seem to move. Samuel, maybe if you can help me from your end. I'm having a technical challenge from my side.
That's okay. Kindly stop sharing.
Okay.
So that can you see the presentation?
Perfect. Thank you, Samuel. Maybe we can move to the next slide, which I would like to just display my outline and jump straight to the first objective, the first agenda. Now, credit scoring is a statistical computation of a number that is used to determine whether an off-taker is a good debtor or a bad debtor. Globally, smallholder farmers are estimated to be about 500 million, and in developing countries, they produce about 80% of food. Now, these said farmers are largely excluded from the farm credit due to the fact that some farm on unregistered lands with no title deeds, and even for those with land titles, they fear losing their lands in case of default, or they're generally poorly scored. The consequences will be that farmers will end up using optimal farm inputs, and this would lead to poor yields and eventually translate to food insecurity, both locally and globally. Next slide. Now, the scoring approaches being used currently dwell mostly on financial data, and this is especially on collateral. But there is need to incorporate non-financial data to make it more farmer-friendly. By this, say for instance, instead of financial institutions requesting for title deeds and logbooks as collateral, why not consider growing crops in the farms? And geospatial data is a good candidate. And now this takes us to the objectives of this research. The main objective of this research is to demonstrate how geospatial technology can be used to leverage farm credit score for the benefit of smallholder farmers. Specific ones are first to identify the smallholder farmer and farms within the study area. And in this case, the study area is in Migori County in Kenya. Secondly is to determine the extent of smallholder farmer credit exclusion. And finally, to develop a new farmer credit score approach that includes remotely sensed crop data. Next slide. I'll summarize the methodology flow diagram with 2 key points. Number 1, data collection. Data collection is in 2 phases. The first phase is questionnaire administration to farmers in the study area, plus conducting interviews with key informants in financial institutions and credit reference bureaus in Kenya to assess and evaluate the extent and the use of financial and non-financial data in credit scoring. Second phase is a collection of reference points, which will eventually be used for classification, training, ground truthing, generating NDVI values, and computing expected yields. The second key point is 2 credit score models will be generated using logistic regression, a traditional credit score, and a new improved credit score, which is now inclusive of geospatial data. And finally, a comparison will be done between the new improved model and the traditional model. Next slide, please. Now, talking about the initial results and conclusions, objective 1 and 2 were achieved by administering questionnaires to farmers and financial institutions, and also by using tools such as Trimble TDC 100 mobile mapper and Garmin-Trex 10 handheld GNSS to pick farm reference points. There's some factors that were used, considered to achieve this objective. One was selecting farms that are less or equal to 2 hectares. Secondly, farmers selected were not from rented lands, but from personal lands with title deeds under their names or family land. Third, even distribution of farms around the county was considered. And at least 15 farms per sub-county were picked. And finally, farms chosen from the imagery as projected there. You can see the yellow dots. Those are the ones that are representing the farms, were farms were chosen from imagery as displayed on the map, were those that were cloud-free. Now, data abstraction was also done using SPSS, and through a statistical analysis using R program, a conclusion was made that indeed smallholder farmers are financially excluded. Next slide, please. Now, the next step is first to complete the first publication, and then developing a new farmer credit score approach that includes remotely sensed crop data, which is actually the gist of this study. And the following steps will be followed. First, geospatial data analysis will be done, then developing of the score models, then testing the model, and then conclusion and thesis writing. Thank you, and over to you, Dr. Jenge.
Thank you very much, Susan, for that precise and coherent presentation. It's always a pleasure to, like I'll say, to see young women take on heavy tech or deep tech to try to solve problems that are there within the continent. I'm then for now opening up this floor to questions. We can question anyone right from the first speakers, and I hope they're hoping that they're still here with us. So we can start for the next about 10, 15, 20 minutes. We can discuss some of these things and what they mean for this continent and the rest of the world. So,
Dr. Jenge, we have a question from Andre.
Yes.
Andre, you can ask a question.
Yes. Andre, you got the mic. Yes.
Andre, if you're there, please proceed.
Well, the same way we did for carbon, that's that representation, just keep it up.
Maybe we can give him a
Yeah,
minute or
first,
two. We also have some comments on the chat section.
Yeah, it's not coming out. Andre, yeah, it's not coming out clearly. Andrew, can you try again? Sorry?
For your architect, you're planning and inspection, just remove everything.
No, that is Fiona's
Then I'm
background.
wondering.
Andre's microphone is muted. So
Yeah,
Andre,
that's
just unmute. Fiona, if you could mute your background. He seems to be having a small challenge with his laptop or phone. However, there are a couple of comments that have come through the chat. Martin Bayer, I think, is in the executive. Yes, he's actually in the Executive Council of Acts. He says, I like the discussion at the intersection of AI in the broader context of technology and ethics. There has been some interesting work out of Stanford and multiple global partners exploring this, and he's provided a link for everyone to access. We don't have any other comment, though we can also invite any of our panelists to provide a comment or an observation or a reaction.
Hi, yes, I do. And maybe I just wanted to offer, maybe Andre may have accidentally raised hand, because it's very easy to accidentally hit the raise hand button on these seminars. But my question for the presenters today is, these are terrific, wonderful ideas. You know, it seems is sort of in the research and development mode. Do you have plans for broader deployment, and how do we bridge that gap from developing things in at university or in research environments to getting them deployed more broadly to benefit farmers or in the context in which they're intended? So that's my question.
Any takers, any of the presenters? That's a heavily loaded question.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, may I open the discussion?
Yes, Dr. Leo.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, from my side, in terms of on how I'm planning my product that I'm developing, that is a tool for early detection of mycotoxin in maize. What I've focused so far is to make the product as cheap as possible, so that when it comes to the deployment of this tool to the user, especially farmers, they can be able to afford it. Yeah, that is what I can say for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That takes care of the cost, which is a very big issue. Any other takers? Christiana's question is heavily loaded because a lot of this tech needs co-creation. If you talk with IBM today, IBM has delivered so much appropriate technology down at community level, and they're questioning why it's not being adapted, it's not being taken. It's collecting dust in their shelves. The same to Carlo. Carlo is the Kenyan version. It's Kenya Agricultural Research and Livestock Organization. It's a state corporation that carries out research on agriculture and livestock. They've also developed about 30 mobile applications that are targeting the farmer. But the uptake is so poor. So you see now the question is, how do we crack this? And you realize that co-creation is very powerful because it talks about functionality. Does that functionality really cover what the farm or that the user wants? What about access to the technology, cost of the devices, ease of use, language? It's so complex. Yes, Devotha, please. Dr. Nyambo, come on.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ojenge. Actually, what has been risen is a very critical aspect when it comes to adoption, the issue of co-creation. But I want to add on top of that, the co-creation can be taken as we, as AI experts, we take propose the solutions to the farmers. For example, for the case of farmers. So the farmers, they are left with no choice but to just support you, okay? So, okay, you are here with this type of a solution. So let's see how it works. And they will listen to you, they will give you advice or comments, and then you will move on and do the creation. But I think it is very critical as well to do indigenous knowledge, integrating indigenous knowledge in our AI solutions so that we do not bypass their base knowledge, but rather we do some kind of complementing what is already available. This is to appreciate the indigenous knowledge of the users of the AI solutions, but also to tell them that AI still appreciates their contribution and their normalities in terms of executing various tasks. And AI is not there to replace what they already know, but to complement and enrich how to do the processes in a more efficient way. I think that's my observation when it comes to the uptake and where maybe we are not doing well in terms of acceptance and adoption of the solutions that we create. Thank you.
That is wonderful, Devotha. Yes, indigenous knowledge is a very powerful component in this. For someone say the success of the bicycle is because it's operated the way people naturally walk. And people like not to stray away from what they're used to. If your technology is taking them away from their cultures and natural ways of doing things, it's certain to fail. That's powerful. Any other I know there are other issues that are separate from this, but it would be nice to kill this one fast. This one of adoption. Any other observation?
Thank you very much, Dr. Njenge. I agree with Dr. Leo and Dr. Devota on their point. And for my case, I will speak on the point of we as machine learning experts. We have observed that most of the time we come up with a solution without engaging stakeholders who are the end user of our products at the end of the day. And most of the time we come up with different solutions. It could be maybe AI-based or just a normal technological solution, but it does not fit according to the needs of the user. So we have observed through this project, before we do anything, we started to interact with those farmers in order to understand what do they really need. Because at the end of the day, you might find that you come up with a solution, maybe a mobile-based application, but their interest is not a mobile-based application. Maybe they want a web-based application. So we come to understand that there are so many requirements that is based on their needs. And you could find that most of the time we just jump out to the solution without engaging them. And at the end of the day, we come up with a solution that cannot be used by them. And we even realized that Dr. Leo presented it very well, that most of them, they're interested with the low cost tools that can be easier for them and affordable based on the nature of them. As we all know that we are talking about smallholders, farmers. And most of them, they're interested for these tools to be in their own language. We are talking about Swahili. They've explained to us most of the tools which have been developed and showed even to us, which most of them, they have used English, and many of them claim that they are not even familiar with that language. So we are trying our best to come up with a solution that will fit based on the needs according to the requirement which we gathered in the field. Thank you very much.
Great, Nema. That is wonderful. Yes, for creation and language. You know, is a particular application that we did a study. We were about agriculture and technology, how digital technology, to what extent is used in Africa, in agriculture in Africa, in certain parts of Africa. We sampled certain countries, and we realized in Ethiopia, there's one particular application. Well, the others were having success rates of 100,000, 50, 70,000. There was one application in Amharic that was hitting 3 million users. You can tell the difference straight away. So vernacular is a very powerful thing when it's used to address this problem. Before we yes.
Might I add from my side also?
Oh yes, Sonia, please.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it brings me back to something I presented is we see it, like spending 50% of your time with just stakeholder engagement and community engagement. That's what we learned. This is where adoption really happens. It's by discussions. It is in many ways, a format of co-creation where you learn about the challenges and how then technology can, or a lot of time cannot solve the issue, but by having these open and honest discussions and also the limitations of technologies. In many ways, that's the way we're seeing that some of these pilot projects have actually scaled and have been adopted by either the local communities or have been shared elsewhere. And to add on to Angela's question also then for, like the bigger adoption, the other element definitely has been by sharing very openly, documenting in a very detailed manner, and then sharing to just have it being adopted by whoever is interested. And through that process, then having more, in our case, flying labs, adopting these kind of solutions, or sometimes in many cases also organizations or people outside of the network, adopting that and having the growth in this kind of way.
Great. So 50% of time in the entire process spent on stakeholder engagement. I think that's something that we really need to think hard about. And I can see Professor Galcano his hand is up. You don't have the microphone. Before then, we come to what Professor Mugabe has also introduced or spoken about. Professor Galkano, can you speak?
Yes, I have a microphone now, Professor Dr. Jenge. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I just wanted to offer a comment on the issue of low uptake of innovations and new technology, not only in Africa, but pretty much in many societies. There is a phenomenon called resistance to change, which we must not underestimate. People generally feel comfortable doing things the way they have always done them. And therefore, when we have a new technology, a new innovation, it's important that we try to break down that phenomenon of resistance to change through a number of techniques, one of which is awareness creation. For example, you talked about KALRO and agricultural innovations in Kenya here. And in such a scenario, we need to create awareness at different levels, right from the agricultural managers to the field extension officers, right down to the farmers themselves, in a consistent manner. And that, of course, means that there's got to be adequate funding for that. And in my view, that is quite a contributor to our low uptake of new technologies such as what we're talking about today. Thank you.
Yeah, that is true. That definitely adds value to the conversation. Those are things that we need in collective effort to put in. I think a study needs to be done on exactly what are the set of steps that need to be done in order to enable creation that then is uptaken by people. And to bridge that gap, the user community needs to see the benefit, but we reduce to what extent then they have to change their lifestyle in order to exploit the technology. Okay, we are saying this because we are sure that within our AI4D Africa, we are going to certainly keep following our beneficiaries in order to evaluate to what extent their technology has been deployed and what is the rate of success. So on that topic, I don't know whether there's any other comment on that topic before we get out of it and move to another quick one. I know we are not good with time. However, today we shall certainly leave much earlier. Maybe we can have some 10 or 15 more minutes. Professor Blums? Yes.
Have a hand up by Prof. Wadiga.
Yes.
You can unmute.
Yes.
If that is not an old hand.
Yes. Yes, Prof, just unmute.
Yes, I've unmuted.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, can hear you clearly. Just speak now. Yes, Prof, just we can hear you now.
No, I had spoken earlier and
okay.
I had given my comments. I have no further comments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Then I can see Professor Mugabe saying what should be done by African governments. Yes. There's a question?
Yes,
before
there's a question.
We exhaust this before we move to the next. Yes, question?
We can exhaust as you have mentioned, then we can go to the next question.
Yes. So what is the question?
So we have a question from Jean de Dieu, who asks,
Yes.
what is the actual policy put in place for African countries to promote and facilitate the deployment of AI technologies? And what is the way forward after this seminar to engage governments?
Okay. So I don't know who can pick that up. Any takers to that question? Okay, we as an organization.
We have Dr. Devota.
Oh yes.
Her hand is up. Yeah.
Okay. Devota, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Onyange. I think I want to comment on the aspect of governments. I think it all has to start from us, the AI researchers, and maybe the implementers, by making sure that in most of the implementations that we do, basically it's technical deliverables are the ones which are mostly seen in terms of papers and devices and maybe various solutions, but less effort is made to inform policy, to write policy briefs from the academicians or researchers to the policymakers or to the governments. In this way, I think the government will be more aligned into understanding what the AI domain is doing, and as such, be able to amend various implementation approaches which are taken by the government to also incorporate AI components. I think it has to start from us and towards the government in terms of informing policies and policy making and reforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Devota. I totally agree. The government is just made up of individuals. There's individuals who must assimilate, must comprehend, and then based on their comprehension, see quality in something and then make decisions. So we who understand this discipline and its value to transformation of the continent need to collect the evidence. And part of the evidence is in ensuring that the models are performing, and then converting these models into daily use. There has to be a certain critical mass of users that must be attained. I believe that strongly. And that is why deployment should be our burden as developers, as the tech developers. Then once we collect that as a body, an adequate body of evidence, then we create policy briefs based on that evidence, then we can approach government or individuals in government. Then it probably would work. I don't know whether there could be other ways too. It would be nice to hear now.
I think I also like the way you have put it in the sense of making deployment our biggest burden. I think, yeah, it's very important, making deployment the biggest burden. So yes, in design, implementation, and then deployment, which maybe sometimes it's under budgeted for. Whenever we do these kinds of research, we mainly focus at the middle part, development, implementation. Yeah, there has to be a change.
That is nice. Then that should now change your thinking. Anytime now you do a proposal, try to create that part that will take care of the deployment component. And remember what Sonia was saying, 50% of that entire time should be on stakeholder engagement. It's our burden again to convince the funder that will add value. Any other comment around there? Okay, we can always come back to it. Professor Mugabe says, what should be done by African governments, private sector, et al. To promote African women involvement and retention, the involvement and retention in AI? What should be done? by African government. I believe we are doing our part. We've ensured that 50% of the beneficiaries are women, and we can see the kind of work they're doing. What about government? What should government do and private sector to promote African women involvement?
Yeah, may I contribute on that?
Yes, yes, Judy.
Yeah,
And
what
then
I tried regarding the government, I think the government should collect those information from all researchers who are doing issues in AI, and also try to establish a roadmap for women inclusivity in terms of the adoption of AI in Africa. That is what I can say.
That is nice. I believe that adds a lot of value. Though working with government is a very difficult thing for those who've done. Jay, please.
Thank you, Dr. Winston. I would like to share my experience with governments. We are working with some ministry in our country that are participating in our AI projects by giving us some opportunities to international events in AI in order to network and extend our invention or show it to the world. This networking allows us to meet investors and stakeholders that can help us to level up our projects. So I'm trying to say that the main role government can take to promote artificial intelligence, women who are in artificial intelligence, is to give them opportunities to network with other researchers in order to better develop their project. That's it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, so government can create the venue where practitioners, researchers, developers, and practitioners of AI interact with as many women or young girls as possible. Yes, there are programs that I believe government can do. I don't know whether there's anyone else. Thank you so much, Dave, for that insight into what has been practically done in your country.
Yeah, yes, I have an addition.
Yes, Judy.
Yeah, in addition to what has been discussed so far regarding on how to include women in AI, I think the government should also establish a club whereby women are being trained on the AI awareness and different activities that they can do through the use of AI techniques.
Yeah, that is a fact. But I also know that, okay, maybe government should follow what certain parts of the private sector is doing. You will realize that developers of infrastructure, such as Huawei, such as Cisco, such as Google, IBM, all over Africa and parts of the world, they create labs and create programs and create boot camps and training programs that target people in the university. Some even go down as low as high school to engage these kids in emerging technologies such as AI. That is very powerful. But I've also learned that countries that have become highly developed do that by following what the private sector is doing. The private sector is profit motivated. It's a do or die. So they are usually very optimal. Their ways are perfectly thought out and extremely, what would I say? Extremely highly performing. So because they do those things, that they survive, and those things have value. So government should always run to copy, emulate what private sector is doing well, especially the profit motivated section of the private sector. So I believe that works. That works. Kind of copy programs targeting youth, girls, schools. Any other, besides what Judith has said, any other?
Thank you,
Ndema?
Dr. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree with others, what they have contributed in that angle. But for my view, I was trying to look on the part of the government, how, I don't know what I can say, but I know how rigid they are to move to this part of the AI. And at the other part, I'm trying to figure out and to talk about the part of women in AI. And here we are talking about only less than 30% of the women are the one who contributing in this field of AI. So it's kind of challenges because we are very few who are engaged in this field of artificial intelligence. At the same time, we are talking about the part of the government who in one way or another, they are not yet ready to transfer from traditional approaches to come back to the part of the technological part, which we are trying to deploy. So I think, first of all, we as scientists, we need to find a way to convince the government first to understand what is AI, and even the advantage of adapting this technology in order for them to be able and willing to shift from traditional to technological part aspect of this approach which we have developed. But not only that, but I think government should find a way to support, even if they are not yet ready to move to that part of the AI, as the matter of the fact that we are very few in this field, but at least to support based on what we are trying to create and develop to come up with different solutions on addressing different challenges in the society, at least for them to use the developed approaches in implementing different policies in their part. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very true, Neema. And another thing yourselves could also do is occasionally walk to the high schools, especially the girls' high schools, and talk to them. With your successes at deployment, these things shall have they shall develop their own voices and talk. And then government will listen, and the scholars, high schoolers will listen and take up these courses, and that's one way to go. I know that we are about time. We can just give maybe a couple of minutes, 4 minutes at most, or 5 minutes at most. Before then, we invite Professor Gada then and Angela Christiana that could then give closing remarks. So let's see what is burning and deal with it in the next, say, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Any other, Samuel, Fiona, any hands you've seen? And I can see Angela saying, it may be useful to read Callistus Joma's book, Innovation and Its Enemies, Why People Resist New Technologies. And I think techies like ourselves who have presented today now may need to find time to read this. I know techies don't like reading anything away from their work. Why people resist new technologies. So I believe, Fiona, you're picking some of these links that have been given, and maybe you can consolidate them, and later we can share them. So all the links that people have volunteered, that would be with the messages attached to them, then it may be possible to look at them later. Elizabeth, yes.
From Hezron Ogutu, please unmute.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Hezron Ogutu. I'm attending the conference from Kisii University where I'm lecturing. Mine just maybe a comment, 1 or 2. So the first one is, I think I want to thank all the presenters, and I think I've been informed quite a bit because this is actually not my field, but I'm in the area of innovation. So I've learned quite a bit, and I do feel that there's an exigency or an urgency of having this kind of technology released into the market. And so this kind of technology are, I don't know if they are, if I may ask, if they are very applicable, particularly to small scale farmers. would you say they are applicable to small-scale farmers? That is one. And two, is there an end-of-life cycle analysis, particularly for the gadgets? Do we have such kind of things that particularly we don't want to have some of these, let me say, gadgets that are like the flying, the flying, the technology, the circuit boards are released into the farmlands basically. So do we have an end of life analysis that maybe can take care of that? So those are my two questions. That is.
Okay. Yes. I believe Ezron is making inquiry about whether this technology is really targeting the smallholders. I know maybe one or two people could make a comment whether that is, but even before they do that, I would like to ask Susan, particularly. Susan, okay, when you are using, I believe you must have been using satellites in your remote sensing work to visualize the crop health in Migori. Were you using drones? Were you using satellite? And if you were using, to what extent, how small were you, how deep or how small were you able to go in terms of resolution, spatial resolution? Were you able, for instance, to isolate a 1 acre farm and be able to tell to what extent it will yield?
Thank you, Dr. Jenge, for your question. Yes, I was using satellite, and in particular, I used Sentinel-2 satellite, which has a 10-meter resolution. And right now, it is work in progress in terms of calculating yields, and that is the step I am moving towards.
So I think that is answered. Yes. Anybody else? Maybe Judith, maybe Devota or Nema, just one person could answer whether that technology targets smallholders. Don't have a suspicion, because given that I'm familiar with your works, I know that it targets smallholders. Your focus has been on the smallholder, the dairy farmers and crop farmers. So I think that is okay. With anything else, any other thing? I think we are almost done. Maybe a last burning question. We wrap this up. Okay. Then allow me then to say how lovely this has been. You wish it could go on and on. Sometimes you wish it were face to face. I don't know whether there's anyone who feels like that. You wish you were able to see the passion in the faces of the presenters or in the faces of the people who are pushing certain theories and philosophies. Then it would be quite exciting. However, it's been adequately exciting, and now we are coming to the end of the 3-day. I think we've had a wonderful set of presenters through the entire 3 days, and the audience too, who've been very active, and I think we're all getting a lot out of, or walking away with a lot out of this event. I would like, therefore, to say thank you so much for everybody, and then for particularly our presenters of today, and those who managed and who asked questions and provided the audience, and the ACTS staff that supported the entire process. So I'd like to welcome Professor Gada or Angela Cristiano. I'm torn between what order. Maybe I could ask.
Sorry, Dr. Jenge, yes. We have 2 comments from Professor Mugabe.
Yes.
He says diffusion and deployment of AI require private enterprise or businesses. Researchers and research institutes often lack capabilities to commercialize new technologies. Research industry leakages are vital. Then he adds technology assessment and foresight offer tools for determining benefits and risk of AI. It's actually a very pertinent comment. I don't know if he wants to unmute and if you'd like to just expound. If not, you can just let us know.
Okay. Yes, Prof.
I think that's for our next seminar.
Mm-hmm.
Let's organize another seminar, then we'll discuss.
Okay.
Thank you.
But even before going further, yes, I kept on, there was something I knew I was missing. I know they're still missing other things in co-creation, functionality, access to tech, cost of device, ease of use, language, indigenous knowledge, and business model. We must, and certainly us as researchers can't basically develop the business model. We have to work with the industry. I believe that this would be a lovely area of further study. Thank you so much.
One last comment from James Gomez. He says, as a temporal measure, our government should be encouraged to set aside AI fund to enable African dreams to be real. Okay, he's really summarized it, but I think the essence is an AI fund to enable Africans to realize their dream. And finally, Fiona asks that at the end, we turn our cameras on for a group photo at the very, very end. That is after Prof and Angela close the session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, James, too. That is a good observation. It certainly is true. Then, in the absence of any other questions, then we can I now invite Professor Tomogade?
Please make the camera available to everybody.
Yes, when it comes to taking the photos, I think the admins would enable everyone turn on their cameras. I don't know who
seems to have dropped off.
The Prof has dropped off. Angela?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yes, Angela, it would be nice to now hear you close this powerful set of events.
It would be my honor. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the presenters and panelists, and a special thank you to the ACTS team, Professor Wadinga, for your insightful comments and questions. I've appreciated them very much, and for your support of this seminar. Prof. Ogata for welcoming and co-hosting, and especially to Dr. Ojenge for organizing along with the staff, working so hard behind the scenes. Many, many thanks to all. Just my final reflections, I'm thinking again about the theme of this seminar, which is AI and machine learning applied to accelerating sustainable development goals. So, to be clear, not tech for tech's sake or for research's sake, but for the benefit of people. And I'm appreciating the presentations and the rich discussion that we've had, especially about getting AI and ML out of the research silos and planning from the start of a research project for that full life cycle with the end in mind of deployment and adoption for the benefit of people. That was certainly, what Calestis was all about. And as he noted in his book that I shared, and in those videos that were shared at the beginning, the beneficiaries, in order for beneficiaries to get past some of the fears that they have and the hesitancy they have for adopting new technologies, one pathway is to engage them from the start in the development, so that those benefits are very clear. And I think that's especially applicable to AI, which has so much mystery and fear around it. So those are my reflections and what I'm taking away from this seminar. And I really encourage everyone to go to Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever your social media platform of choice is and share your reflections. Tag ACTS in your post, tag the Callistus Juma Legacy Foundation in your post, and we will elevate your thoughts on our platforms so that they can get a broader audience. Let's continue the discussion on social media and hopefully on another seminar soon. So again, thank you to all, and back to you, Dr. Ojenge.
Okay, thanks so much, Angela, for your words. I think that basically does it. Though at one point I wish that it were Professor Mugabe could have sat in for Professor Gada to also say 1 2 words, then Fiona can take over and turn on our cameras for us.
Prof is back, so you can give him an opportunity.
Okay. Okay. So Prof, your the most final words before we turn on the cameras.
My most final words are two. The first is to say big thank you to all the participants. It has been a wonderful 3-day information sharing opportunities and learning opportunities. And I really hope that participants, including the beneficiaries, but also the speakers that have been around, have found it useful and rewarding in terms of contributing towards the wealth of knowledge in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And then we look forward to continuing with the discussion. As I said earlier, there are some issues that are coming out from these various seminars, which will be packaging into topics for discussions, and then therefore we'll still be inviting you whenever we organize such seminars to really participate and contribute. We want to aggressively promote the development of artificial intelligence and machine learning in Africa to enhance development agenda of our countries, and to ensure that we are not left behind, because there are fears that if we don't move very fast, then like just the digital divide, there would be another divide that this time will just be focusing on artificial intelligence and machine learning. So the more we can do about some of these things, the better, and therefore let's continue doing the same. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention is that I indicated this on day one, that the CJ seminar that we launched last year is a continuous process. We expect to do it on a quarterly basis. Sometimes if there is need, we could even do more. Like already there is need really to try to address further the issue of ethics and technologies. And I think we'll be then considering having a special seminar just to look at this. But I needed to mention that at ACT, we have 5 major programs that we are implementing. And for each of these seminar, each program has been spearheading. The first one was spearheaded by the Science, Technology, Innovation and Society program, and was the issue of industrialization. The second one was spearheaded by the program of Agriculture, Food Security and Nutrition, and that looked at how to develop an STI roadmap to address SDG 2, which is agriculture. This one has focused on artificial intelligence. I'm very grateful to the program of digital economy that has spearheaded this. And Dr. Jenge, you'll be passing the baton to the next program, which is climate change. That is the one that will organize the next CJ seminar series, and it will likely to take place in August, and we'll be focusing on, among other things, climate financing, and also what I saw today, the interaction between technology, climate change, and health, and any other topical issues that will be related to climate change. And this will be important in preparation of Africa towards COP27 that will be taking place in Egypt towards the end of the year. So again, we'll be coming back to you to invite you and other participants to continue dialoguing. So, and with that, then we'll be able to keep live this process that we have started, and you are part of this family, and then we look forward to engaging you continuously. Otherwise, then once more, I want to thank very much my collaborator in this series, and that is the CJ Legacy Foundation, headed by Angela Christiana and Professor Mugabe. And not to forget, of course, to thank very, very much the International Development Research Center that is supporting this program, and really to say big thank you. And from what we have seen today, I think it is a worthwhile investment. And we look forward to really having wonderful African scholars taking their place, not only regionally, but globally. And with that, thank you. And back to you, Dr. Jenge and Samuel. I don't know whether Katia had already said something, if she's around.
No, I don't think. I think she must have dropped off at one point.
Okay.
So camera woman, that is Fiona. You can take it up. Then we can finish. Can end this. So what do we do, Fiona?
Just turn your cameras on. I know I've caught you off guard, sorry. Turn them on. I don't think our participants will be able to, but maybe that's for the next seminar. So we can just turn them on.